Sports Festa Rick Horrow inside the $2.6 trillion business of sports. You're on the record. A reprise with a NFL Hall of Famer from 2023, Ronde Barber. Grew up in Roanoke, but Bruce Arians was his father's roommate in college. Not that he wouldn't have gotten a break otherwise, but 97, he was the third-round pick of the Buccaneers. He had a chip on his shoulder. Tiki was drafted 36th by the Giants, and the two of them have an incredible competitive history, good-natured, obviously. 16 years with the Bucs, 241 games, the most impressive piece, 232 starts. Now his community has become larger. He's done 8 children's books with his brother. He turned 50 this last year. He is the long-term chairman of the Valspar Golf Tournament. They've raised $60 million in charity, active in the James Hardy Hall of Fame Golf Tournament every year down in Boca Raton with Ken Kennerly. And at the end of the day, this is a man who can speak from an incredible perspective about life, about college football, about NIL, about brotherly competition and brotherly love, about the Buccaneers and a Tampa Bay legacy, baseball, football, and otherwise. Certainly with the Buccaneers, again, on the way up to consistency, Ronde Barber is the guy you want to talk to. Here's Ronde Barber.
It is rare we have a superstar, Hall of Famer, businessman, marketing person extraordinaire, third-team All-American, University of Virginia, twin brother, bon vivant, significant individual, hero in Tampa. I'll go on, but it gets stale after a while because there's so much to say about Ronde Barber. How's that for an intro?
That's pretty good. Bon vivant, I've never heard that. I don't know what that word means.
Well, don't even check, okay? All right. I can get away with it because you talk fast. Nobody really cares. You are it. Just accept that. So in addition to that, kind of up front, he's the co-chair of the Valspar 2025 event. He will be significantly involved in the James Hardy Hall of Fame event run by ProLink Sports, but really a significant golf civic activist. Is that a pretty good, appropriate term for what you're doing?
Yeah, that's pretty much where I've landed here certainly the past 4 years that I've been general chair of Copyright Charities, which is the host organization for the Valspar. But yeah, I spent a lot of time with our charity. I spent a lot of time with this golf tournament. I was pretty instrumental in helping that James Hardy Pro Football Hall of Fame partnership come to life. I'm fortunate enough to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and they were looking for a partner outside of the NFLPA, which had originally been the intent. And the Hall of Fame, Jim Porter, the president of the Hall of Fame, I'm right on board and partners with James Hardy, and that's going to be an awesome event. I mean, I can't wait. Obviously, I'm pretty psyched about the Valspar here in March 17th or 23rd, but I'm pretty excited to play golf with these champions too here.
Yeah, you got a pretty busy 2 weeks. And as far as the Hall of Fame, notwithstanding me being the Pro-Am, it is exciting for the people who are in it. And I know a lot of the golfers really want to play with their favorite football guys, and clearly vice versa. You know, the whole dream team mix of Dan Marino and Jimbo Corbett and some Pittsburgh guys, for example, and Morton Anderson and Thomas Bjorn, for example. I mean, there are a lot of guys may or may not work, and I know Ken Kennerly is working his butt off to try to make that all happen. But the whole idea of that mixture with a relatively pedestrian senior champions event, and now it's a whole new dimension in Boca Raton, which in many ways is one of the poster childs for golf in the United States.
Yeah, I think that they had intentions to making this with regular players and some current players, and it couldn't get across the line. And when you think about it, it's even better if you're thinking about what golfers you're playing with, the champions level golfers, that it's the guys that are already in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I mean, the Champions Tour is essentially, it's a celebration of guys that had great careers on the tour. Obviously, there's some that have played their way into playing better on that tour, but there's, I think about Ernie Els of the world, who, I grew up idolizing, loving playing, watching him play. Remember, he played here in Tampa a number of times. Bernhard Longer, obviously, how great of a player he is now as an elder guy. But there's a lot of guys my age. I'm 50 this year, Rick. I'll be 50 in like.
I was you're stealing my thunder. April 7, man. I got that dated. I got it there.
Yeah, a couple of weeks.
Celebration, man. Yeah, I know.
So these golfers, these plus 50 golfers are my era, man. So, and I think a lot of the guys in Hall of Fame have the same sentiment as I do. The Pro Football Hall of Fame have the same sentiment that I do. You love golf now, obviously, with the new young group of players and whatnot, but if you hit a certain age, these are the guys you watch play golf. So I think it's going to be a really special event. And Ken Kennerly's doing a heck of a job. I love Ken. He's got a pretty yeoman's task getting all of us rounded up playing this thing. But I think he's accomplished it, and it's going to be pretty awesome.
Well, it's like herding cats, you guys, us, because not only you guys, but it's like, you're all have achieved unprecedented success in your sport. Now, golf's a non-contact sport. What could be so difficult about that? The ball's not moving. You're not being tackled. What the hell? Until you start playing, right? And then it's like all hell breaking loose.
Right. I can't believe golf is as hard as it is. And if you would have asked me 30 years ago when I started playing, if I would have loved it this much, and I probably would have said not if I knew it was going to be this hard. But I think we all like to accept challenges that are presented at us and overcome the lack of being able to be perfect, and that's golf. That's what it is, and we all have a hell of a time doing it.
I remember Dan,
and obviously when you're doing it for great charities and
clearly
benefiting something outside of ourselves, it makes it that much even more worth it.
I remember Dan Marino telling me a story about Orlando Mari saying, a former kicker with the Dolphins, saying, "What could be that difficult?" And then Dan got a friend of his to tackle him on a backswing and say, "Yeah, you think this is easy, pal? What do you think?" Right. I mean, everybody has those same kind of stories. So let me just ask you this. So you're born in Roanoke, Virginia, almost 50 years ago. Did you ever think that you'd be sitting there in 2023 receiving a Hall of Fame jacket? Unbelievable.
Yeah. So I grew up in Roanoke, Virginia. I was actually born in Blacksburg, outside of Virginia Tech. My mom and dad went to school at Tech. So grew up in Roanoke, then went to Charlottesville. And I would have said, even after I got drafted in the third round in 1997, that my final destination, which ultimately was the Pro Football Hall of Fame, was never on my radar. It probably wasn't even until my last 4 or 5 years in the league. And Rick, I tell a lot of people this: you don't really start taking inventory until you start feeling the paint's completely dried on your career. Right? Then you're like, did I do a good job? Is this color the right color? Stuff. I really started to reflect on my career probably, in 2009, 2010. And it had its merits. And people start talking about it because you're getting close to retiring. And that's when it starts to really settle in that you're in that conversation. And so for the next 6 years before I actually got, I guess 11 years, because 6 years after my 5-year buffer, just being in a conversation is nice to have, right? And you get somewhat antsy and maybe disappointed when you don't get in. But I was a semifinalist for 6 years. And I know plenty of people that have been semifinalists once, never been semifinalists again, get to the finalist level, never make it back to the finalist level. So I had to wait 3 years, and I was a finalist for 3 years. And that sixth time I finally got in. So were you one of those guys that when you heard David Baker's fat little feet walking down the hall, you would get a stethoscope to see if he was going to knock on your door? You know what, those guys? You know what, Rick? I never had to do that process. Dave Baker left, and that walking down the hall process changed when Jim Porter came in.
Okay.
So now you just get the knock on the door at your house. Interestingly enough, somebody in your household, for me it was my wife, knew a week before I did. Because they got to set it up and make sure.
Well, they got to get the cameras and get your instant reaction. Exactly. And you're upset at her that she doesn't tell you, right? And then you're looking at it. It's like you just won, what is that, Publishers Clearinghouse, where you just won, $500,000?
That's exactly
bigger
right.
than that, man. Bigger than that. But listen, you obviously deserved it. And what you've done for the game is more. The most incredible stat, I think, of all of these stats, even as a business show, is you played 16 years with the Buccaneers, and obviously you started more games and you played more games in addition to your 5 Pro Bowls. than anybody on the team. Of course you did, because you played 16 years.
Right.
How does someone, even then and certainly now, play 16 years with one team?
Impossible, really.
Yeah.
I mean, now it just doesn't happen. I mean, there's some guys. I mean, you look at the Bucks now. Mike Evans is probably not leaving here ever. I mean, this week we just re-signed Chris Godwin. I know.
Yeah, good for you. Good for them.
David. Those are huge names in the lexicon of Bucks football that probably are going to play with one team. It's rare because guys generally end up trying to chase money, chase better opportunities, chances to win, et cetera, et cetera. But I was fortunate. I think because I got a slow start. This is funny to say this, but it benefited me having a slow start to my career because I didn't play it all my first year. And so when I signed my next contract, my second contract of my career, it wasn't a absorbent contract. It was a very low contract compared to the market. And so it kind of allowed me to stay here. And then they made it up to me when I was 31 years old.
Yeah.
They gave me a big contract, the most money that I'd ever made. And I played for another 6 years. And I think at that point, mutually, concerned, we had each other's best interest at heart at that point. I'd have been all-time Buck. I'd been on a team with some great legends, Derek, John, Warren, two of those guys leaving and going to play for other teams, which I think our ownership group and our front office realized they didn't want to do with me either. So I've benefited a lot from what happened before the end of my career. And I'd never wanted to go anywhere. I had some opportunities, free agency a couple times.
Sure you did.
There was no chance I was leaving.
This is a naive question, but it's real. I mean, does that happen anymore? I mean, would people in a negotiating room say, look, we're going to reward you for past performance even as much as future performance?
I doubt it. I mean, there's just so much going on in the NFL these days. The money is astronomical, and deservedly so, because the cap keeps rising with the TV dollars and the amount of revenue that's coming into the league. And so ultimately it becomes, a value proposition. So even if you love a guy, if he demands more than what you're willing to come to the market, then he's gone. He's just going to leave. I mean, the first day of free agency every year, you'll see it. There's these huge numbers and guys that are leaving or getting cut to go to free agency that you just don't expect. But it's just the way that it is. And you're only as valuable as what one team's going to pay you. And one team, especially if you're a good player, is probably willing to spend the money to get you.
Was there a premium built in for being a long-term Buck? How does a team evaluate those loyalties today, given the salary cap?
That's a great question. I would say like a guy like Levante's a perfect example, right? Levante's probably not the player he was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But he's still a pretty damn good football player and a guy that'd be hard to replace in so many different ways, not just on the field, but in the locker room and what he means to the franchise and what he means to the fan base. I think I kind of mentioned it a minute ago when John and Sapp left to go play for Denver and Oakland respectively. Nobody wanted to see those guys play out the rest of their careers in other uniforms. That's hard to do. It's hard to reconcile. And I think if you have the right ownership, certainly the right front office, GM, Jason Light's that guy here, Greenberg, those guys here, I think they understand the value that, your players have for you. It helps your team. It helps the depth of the guys down the bottom of the roster when you see loyalty, because it's so rare in professional sports these days. But this team seems to have it, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing as you keep winning. That's will clearly be a good thing for everybody. Yeah, so it's April 9, 2001. You signed the $18.5 million 6-year contract. Life changer for you, but do you feel like you were born a little too early?
Can I go back in now?
Yeah. See, let's do a little
I'll start over
button.
Yeah. I'll start over at scratch right now and try to get to the promised land in 25 years. I'm really good by then. Holy cow.
Well, remember, inflation goes up too, so we understand that. But I could ask you if these salaries are worth it. You would clearly say they're worthy of it and worth it like any other entertainer is. But does it even strike you now that even with the formula and the revenue sharing and the salary cap as a function of the revenue sharing, very well thought out, unlike other leagues. It's still a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. And I mean, you mentioned inflation. Yeah, it costs a lot more to buy a house now than it did when I bought my house 22 years ago.
Yeah, but not 18.5 million, pal. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking, yes, but it's not unexpected. When you see the type of money that comes in here, and it's the most popular sport in the country for a reason. It's so consumable. It's on every day. They do a great job. The league does of keeping it in your periphery, even when it's not front and center. And so there's just a ton of interest, and I get it. Yeah, the numbers they jump out at you. When you see Josh Allen's new huge deal that he just. You're just like, wait a minute, what sounds like a baseball number? Which in the back of your mind, you're always saying baseball numbers are astronomical.
Yeah, but then Mahomes is still $200 million bigger. So I mean, it's all relative as we know. So one more football, then we'll get to some of the golf stuff, which is interesting quickly. So it's January 26th of 2003. You're walking off the field, the Gruden Bowl. You guys win it. What's your feeling? How do you feel about that? Do you realize it's going to kind of change your life?
You know what's honest? If you want my honest answer, I was excited as hell. Yeah. So we're walking off the field. I'm looking for my family. Trying to find people to celebrate with. It's chaos, right?
Yeah.
I was disappointed because I didn't make any plays in the game. We scored 5 touchdowns. I didn't even have.
Hey, pal, it's a team sport. You could have been like Walter Payton, who was a little awkwardly upset. Rick, I mean, you're okay, right?
Rick, at that point, when you score 5 touchdowns on defense, like you're allowed to be selfish, man. Like,
that's right. That's fair. That's fair. And then the playoff game, what you did to Philadelphia, the weeks before, it's like I am waiting to be the hero every week. I don't care. It's not a TAM team game. It's a Ronde Barber game. Right.
Right. Well, you don't remember this and it's not in the stats because it got called back. I had an interception for a touchdown in the first playoff game that year against San Francisco, but Simeon Rice got a personal foul on the return and the touchdown. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm scoring every single time I play a game. And then I didn't even get a chance to intercept the ball. But no, you're right. You realize when you win. So to take you back to that moment, when you win, that what started, in March or whatever, in off-season practice, workouts that then moved to OTA practices and then training camp and et cetera, et cetera. All those little steps that you take along the way contributed to it. And we were a team that had been good for so long, Rick. I mean, we could have went to the Super Bowl in 1999, right?
Yeah.
We had good teams for so many years that it was almost a relief. But it was a relief to the degree that we wanted more. And it's unfortunate we weren't able to capture more opportunities after that one because we were such a good defense. We had so many good players on the other side of the ball as well that contributed to that win. And you're hungry for more. You just want more.
And every team in the history of Super Bowl wins always says that, except the Patriots did it a bit, and the Eagles just did it again after the Chiefs did it. So, really interesting perspective. Let's spend a couple minutes just talking about life after football. Mm-hmm. First of all, I hear a rumor that the most important thing in your life was not necessarily be drafted 66th by the Bucs in the 3rd round, but that your brother was drafted 36th by the Giants in the 2nd round. Oh, wait, it's the other way around. Wasn't it exciting to feel like a couple of twin brothers are going to be successful NFL players?
Yeah, I mean, you don't really know that you are. You expect to be because obviously we both had great success at Virginia. I was you mentioned at the top. I was 3-time All ACC. I was All American all 3 of my years. I was Rookie of the Year. I led the league in the nation in interceptions my redshirt freshman year. And then Tiki was a Heisman candidate his last 2 years of playing. So we knew we were going to get drafted. We knew that there was space for us and place for us to play in the NFL, and we had some tunnel vision about that. I'll tell you this, draft day, we were with a friend of ours. Actually, he's a senator or a congressman out of Texas named Chip Roy. And
we know that.
Good guy. And he was going through the motions and waiting for the call. This is before all the hoopla and hype that is now. We got cameras on you. And Tiki gets drafted. And between those 30 picks, this is my version of it. Yeah. Between those 30 picks felt like 12 hours. I mean, it was probably only like 2, maybe like an hour and a half between 36 and 66. but it felt like I was waiting forever. Like I couldn't wait for the phone to ring, man. But
did the brother call you and say, you're going to be okay, or I got you even more, or what? No, we left you alone.
No, we were together.
Oh, that's a great story.
We were the whole day. We weren't going to separate each other.
You're obviously very close. Right. You've written 8 children's books together. What's that like? That cool?
That was fun. That was right place, right time. Our publisher at Simon & Schuster, her name was Paula Wiseman. This is a great story, Rick, because this is how stuff like this happens, just kind of out of the blue. Her son was a huge Tiki Barber fan. She goes, "Who is Tiki Barber?" Right? She's
my God.
She doesn't know. Yeah. She publishes children's books. She looked it up and saw that he had a twin brother also in the league that was having some success. And she goes, "I bet you their story would be great children's book material." And so that's how it happened. Her son introduced her to Tiki randomly, and she asked if we wanted to be authors. And it actually tied into an initiative that we were part of at the time. Tiki and I were both Verizon Literacy Champions during that time. Both of us, Tiki in New York, me down here in Florida. And it was a perfect marriage of what we were already pushing on some of our initiatives. And, we ended up writing 13 books, actually. We wrote 3 chapter books, the big ones, or the picture books. Yeah. We wrote 10 other chapter books for kids that once they aged out.
I missed 5. We got to do that in our next interview. Well, you asked Tiki, by the way, whether he feels like he was born too early after the Saquon contract. What do you think of that? Yeah. Right.
Same thing.
Yeah, same thing. So, we talked charity. Final question. Obviously, the Valspar, the celebration of your Hall of Fame in 2023, but the Copperheads since 2018, your involvement, and the co-general chair of this event. Then you come down to the James Hardy and will be directly involved. I'm excited about seeing you there. Golf is so much more than golf. It's all about charity, right?
Yeah. So, being part of this organization, I think I've been 9 years now. Les Muma, who's a huge philanthropist in the area, brought me onto his board. A couple of years after I retired, Tracy West had me host an event. And it was easy for me to see how important this was, especially when you start realizing the dollars that this charity is giving back to local community just by putting on a golf event. And so, as my involvement increased, I realized how important this was and how special it was to me. I mean, I know in my job now as general chair with co-general chair with my buddy John Astrab, that we have a purpose. We want to put on a golf event. Yes, it's the PGA Tour, it's the best professionals in the world, but our dollar needs to hit a number to get back to charity. We have an expectation for what we want. And so it's our job as Copperheads and as this board, to get people in our community involved. That's the purpose, get people to come out to the tournament, spend money recreating with us and enjoying great golf, knowing that at the end of the day, we're injecting $51 million over the course of our 49 years back into local charities. And that's pretty awesome for us to be able to say. And as many things I've been proud of to be part of, this is probably the top of the list right now, just because of that number.
Well, you should be, and excited about participating next week, excited about seeing you again 3 weeks from then,
Absolutely.
And excited about having you as somebody that we can kind of tell this story about. You are incredible, and the whole community needs to be proud of your charitable work. Sports Professor Rick Horrow, speak with you soon.
We're on the record, incredible post-draft time, and we focus on the exciting NHL and NBA playoffs and heading to the golf's second major, all of the NASCAR opportunities. World Cup, by the way, right around the corner. So let's look at opening drive 1 through 5. Number 1, Pittsburgh shatters the single-day NFL draft record, and the total, over 800,000 people attend that draft for all 3 days. By the way, the person who let the NFL out of their lease and not negotiate hard to keep them after 2014, who knows where that person is, but what a juggernaut. Chicago, Philly, Nashville, Cleveland, Vegas, Kansas City, Detroit, Green Bay, now Pittsburgh, all rotating draft assets. National Mall in D.C. next year. What a tremendous opportunity. $111 billion TV contract total buttressed by this amazing event. 130 countries. I will bet you that most of the people in those countries don't know football, but they certainly now know who the 7th round draft pick of the Indianapolis Colts will be, for example. 130 countries have the draft. The $25 billion NFL juggernaut keeps going. The rumor is, after a successful 2020, the draft may, after DC, return to Roger Goodell's basement for a reprise. Probably not, but certainly the money is there no matter where it goes. That's number one. Number two, how about Vegas? A 16-0 season in Indiana nets Fernando Mendoza the number one pick. But even more important, let's say that the 7 starting quarterbacks since 2022 and the record of 15-36 certainly hasn't helped the Raiders. And while the stadium has hosted Super Bowl, baseball coming back, NBA inevitable at a high number, they need to hold their market share. And not just with mega events, but with a top performance on the field by the Raiders, who have not won anything of late. And whether Mendoza succeeds immediately or not, that's the face that not only the Raiders have needed, but the NFL has needed in Vegas as well. That's number two. Number three, Kenya's Sebastian Sawe runs 1:59:30 at the TCS London Marathon to become the first man in history to break 2 hours in a sanctioned record-eligible marathon, and an Ethiopian runner right behind becomes the second. It is an incredible commercial opportunity. Marathon major brands, shoe sponsorships, broadcast rights. The whole host has been immeasurably increased because of these athletic performances, and that's number three. Number four, Oklahoma City. Yeah, they can't be anointed yet. Let's pump the brakes on that. But it is the third time they win the West going away. SGA wins the MVP last year, 42 points in Game 3 in Round 1. He looks like somebody that's destined to do it again. And while we're not ready, as we said, for a second championship parade yet, Mayor David Holt brings major events, Olympic caliber, and the Olympics themselves to Oklahoma City. A, B, the new soccer stadium that's being done since 1993, and the MAPS plan that I was involved in a bit. Oklahoma City has had amazing heights, and they continue to go further. That's number four. And finally, number five, the Boston Bruins get paddled by the Sabres, but more important than that, the Sabres end a 14-year-old drought, 14 consecutive seasons. Key Center Arena, the center of the Buffalo sports universe, which is saying something since Highmark Stadium opens up this next year. The Bills, pretty good draft, but they're looking forward to their first year in the new stadium. And essentially, because it's an open-air stadium, they're not talking about the Super Bowl unless they're playing in it. And at the same time, the Sabres return to relevance, and Buffalo, again, relevant in the NHL, but also Buffalo as a go-to city can't be underestimated. That's your opening drive. Let's look at the 5 to watch. And the first one is, let's see how the Red Sox fare in their purge. Their manager replacing Cora, Tracy, seems to be a player favorite. We'll see if he's a fan favorite. Fenway Sports Group's 24-year ownership tenure. This is probably the biggest shakeup. And it shows how quickly the league's competitive pressure manifests in a house cleaning. $21 million extension signed in 2024. Now we've got new management and new structure. See where the Red Sox continue to go. That's number one. Number two, the Zurich Classic of New Orleans with the Fitzpatrick brothers splitting and the $1.3 million purse actually for each player. The end of the day, this is a distinctive four-format structure. It's the first time and the only time the PGA Tour has it on its calendar. 9.5 million purse, not a signature event, but the event, because of its uniqueness, carries the day as well. That's number two. Number three, Formula One returns to the U.S., the first major event for Apple TV's new broadcast rights. It's in Miami. The Middle East, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabian events, because of the war, were canceled this year. And at the end of the day, Mercedes's Kimi Antonelli is leading the drivers' races. But more important, the major event in Miami, see what Apple does, see how the 5-week hiatus affects the tour, and also the ongoing significant economic impact for South Florida. That's number 3. Number 4, Caitlin Clark returns to the WNBA. The 23 million viewer broadcast, the commercially vital narrative in 2024, resets. The bottom line is the entire new CBA investment depends on Caitlin Clark continuing to rise in her stature, as well as the ongoing television negotiations and new CBA deal. Negotiations complete, deal complete. Let's see what happens over time relative to the continued WNBA climb. And by the way, women's basketball, Olympics, see how that all shakes out. That's number 4. Number 5, Stanley Cup playoffs, the 12-year Canadian broadcast rights deal between the NHL and Rogers Media, and the new 12-season agreement beginning with next season. As far as the U.S. deal is concerned, TNT, True, HBO Max, ESPN, ESPN2, $625 million annually from its existing broadcast deals in the U.S., and clearly Canada not far behind. Obviously, with the Canadians involved this year, that is a whole new perspective, and certainly they look young and they look good. Sports Professor Rick Horrow, I'd like to thank Callie Kazar for putting this together for us. I'd like to thank you all for listening and watching and joining us once again when we get inside the $2.6 trillion business of sports. You're on the record. I'm the Sports Professor Rick Horrow. Speak with you soon.